Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Walker. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. It's Trudeau's new fancy dance. He's at an Asian food festival and he's done it again. He's dancing like nobody's watching. We'll show you. And we have a special video presentation to go along with it tonight, produced right here by yours truly. Also, John, our John, out in Edmonton, shot some pics to celebrate Canada Day. Now, Canada Day isn't until Monday, officially, but a lot of people are already celebrating. It's a big, long weekend in Canada. And while some people on the progressive woke left are determined to cancel the whole country, including the most patriotic day of the year, John is determined to celebrate Canada. And he sent in pics, and I have also put together another stunning patriotic video to showcase his photographic skills. Now, on the darker side, we are also going to tell you tonight about the 15th anniversary of horrific killings in Kingston 15 years ago, an anniversary. Also, inside a serial killer's house of horrors in Indiana, and I'll tell you about the Canadian connection to that story. Plus, a conversation with Maverick News contributor Gail Robertson. She'll discuss everything from RFK Jr., the debate, and Tommy Robinson, among other political topics tonight. So stay with me. Lots to share with you right here on the Maverick News Channel. Don't go away.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching.
The world is watching. On TV, the entire world is watching. On social media.
But the entire world is watching, and yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, we're back, and I think what we'll do tonight is start off with this Canadian story first. 15th anniversary of the killings of 3 teenage sisters. Zainab Sahar, Giti Shafia, and their father's first wife, Rona Amir Mohammed. Let me just pull up, I need a little bit of I just need a moment here. Just a bit of a technical problem, hang on. Okay, so here we are. So, 15 years ago today, a father, mother, and brother murdered their own family in Kingston, Ontario. The youngest, Giti, was only 13 years old. For some of the investigators who dealt with the case, this quadruple homicide, they say that it's an investigation they will never forget. It's a milestone day, 15 years later, and it's a horrific case. It involved what at the time, and I remember this murder investigation from back then, it was described by some as at the time as honor killings. It involved this family from Afghanistan, and they were not just a devastating loss for the families involved, but also a wake-up call for Canada at the time. The victims were found in a car submerged in the Rideau Canal, and the subsequent investigation revealed a dark and troubling motive behind the killings. It was described as an honor killing. Mohammed Shafia, his second wife, Tuba Yawa, and their son, Hamid Shafia, were found guilty of the murders. They believed the young women had brought dishonor to their family by embracing Western lifestyles, having boyfriends, and seeking independence. Honor killings, a practice rooted in a sense of family honor, involve the murder of family members who are perceived to have shamed or dishonored the family. Now, this tragic case highlighted the clash of cultural values and the dangers that can arise when individual freedoms are suppressed. The Shafia case forced us as Canadians to confront the harsh realities of domestic violence and honor-based violence within our communities. It underscored the importance of protecting the rights of women and girls, ensuring their safety, and supporting those who may be at risk of such violence. Of course, sensitive cultural issues rising to the surface as a result of this crime 15 years ago. These are pictures of the victims 15 years ago. And today, still fresh in the memories of those who lived through it in the community of Kingston. So today, as we remember the victims, it's timely to reflect on the progress we've made as a society, I suppose, as a country, if any, and the work that still needs to be done in this area. So many say that we still need to continue to educate, support, and protect individuals from all forms of violence, ensuring that honor-based violence has no place in our society. Canada. A tragedy from 15 years ago brought home again today. Highlighted for you tonight. Now, I'm going to save the other story about this other serial killer whose story has bubbled to the surface again 3 decades later. And I'll tell you about the Canadian connection with that later in the broadcast. The killings taking place in Indiana, but the story ended not very far from where I sit tonight. And I'll tell you how all that unfolded and what the new information is that I have to share with you on that right after this.
Feel the vibrations. Our quest continues. The truth is out there. We are Mavericks.
Okay, so this is somewhat controversial, obviously, because you have naked people walking around on the streets of some Canadian cities, pride parades. This is digitized. I hope that it's digitized well enough. Be forewarned, viewer discretion advised is what I'm saying, because I'm going to show you some of the pride parade footage. But this is out in public. I mean, this is on the streets. I always thought I was pretty liberal in my views, but honestly, I don't understand it. That's my editorial statement on that at this point, but I'll show you what was going on on the streets today. So yeah, there's that, and then we'll cut right to the chase here. There was also an Asian food festival today, and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was there. Now, you may recall that Trudeau was scrutinized and criticized some time ago after his dancing escapades in other countries. You know what I'm talking about. He's done it again. He has a new fancy dance. This one demonstrated, maybe even improvised today at this Asian food festival in Markham, Ontario. So I'm going to share it with you. I don't know if this will get the same amount of traction and negative attention that his other dances have, but it's just one more for the books. And here we go. Let's let it loop one more time.
Instead of dancing, what about Gaza?
So he was at this festival out there, I would say almost kind of campaigning, not just meeting with constituents. And apparently he had something like 200 police officers protecting him. That's what I'm reading tonight, 200 police officers to protect Justin Trudeau. And, I believe he needs the protection. I don't think that should surprise anybody, because he is not popular. Unbelievable. And here comes the negative publicity already. Here, I'll show you what I mean. Didn't take much, did it? So already we're getting negative posts online with this video. So this is Rowan the Stallion from Canada Proud, latching onto it, making use of it. Here it is. Unpopular Justin Trudeau humiliates himself crashing Markham's Asian Food Festival Friday. So I'm sorry, it was yesterday. Using a massive taxpayer-funded police entourage to dance like a fool in search of selfies to feed his narcissism. So yeah, the Asian Food Festival. I thought he was down there today, but maybe he's at... did he go to the Pride events this weekend? I bet you he did. Of course he did. I bet you he did. Let's find out. Let's go to his Twitter page, shall we, and see what he was up to today. Here we go. No. No. Oh, there's something going on. It's multiculturalism day. That was yesterday. Actually, 2 days ago. Not seeing any posts from him on the Pride thing. I know that he's going, but I'm just not sure where or exactly what he's up to today. I don't see any posts from him today. But of course, Canada Day is coming up on Monday. So he'll do something related to Canada, probably like he'll carry an I Hate Canada flag or something. Oh, did I say that? Shouldn't have said that. We'll come back to him. I put together a little montage for you with all his dance moves. So you're gonna want to stick around for that. Everything seems to be changing. I'll tell you, it's been a strange and eventful week with the U.S. presidential debate. And it feels like everything is changing, like we're entering a new phase, a new chapter. And it feels like everything is very, very unstable. I suppose that is to be expected because Biden basically self-destructed in that debate. And as a result, the knives are out. The Dems are looking to replace him. Now, I told you that there were some people predicting that exactly this very thing would happen. I told you that about, I don't know if you remember, you probably don't. It was about a week before the debate. And I said, this guy, like Bongino said it. I can't remember who else I had taken note of, but I did realize that there were quite a few people sort of in the know in political circles, both on the Democrat side and especially on the conservative side, saying that Biden, the reason that the Democrats insisted on having the debate early in June was because they expected him to self-destruct and they need time to replace him. And so here we are, just over 3 months away from the presidential election in November, and exactly this thing has happened. He's trying to stick around. His wife, Jill Biden, appearing online, talking about, she appeared on a social media post saying, "Good job, Joe. You answered all the questions," just like he was a little kid. Also, but on the other side, you've got people like Kamala Harris, who are now trying to position themselves to replace him. I mean, here's Kamala Harris. It's pretty incredible. After the debate, almost immediately after, Rolling Stone comes out with this whole thing on Kamala Harris, a tribute to Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris on what she learned from Tina Turner. The vice president remembers how Proud Mary and the Queen of Rock and Roll shaped her childhood. So they've done this feature on her. Do you think that's an accident? No. They knew this was coming. That's why Rolling Stone has done this feature spread on the vice president, positioning her for replacement of Biden. Ain't gonna happen. But obviously that's what she wants. She's hoping. She's just been sitting back, waiting in the wings. Now, who else might replace Biden? I don't know. So here's the article. Now, you have to subscribe to Rolling Stone, and I'm not about to do that here to read the whole article, but you can see it. When I was a child, my mother would play Proud Mary on repeat as I danced around our living room, singing along into my toy microphone at the top of my lungs, blah, 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 blah. Others, Gavin Newsom, possibility, probably not. We talked about it on the program last night. But I don't know who they would bring in at this point. But what a strange week. I'm just saying that it's pretty clear that the knives are out. And here she is in her virginal white attire in the Rolling Stone shoot. I'll get you the photos. Going to X here to pull this up to show you. But they're pushing her. She's so cool. She's in Rolling Stone. There he is. There she is. Kamala Harris talks to Rolling Stone about what her administration has accomplished. I'm very proud also of what we as an administration have done because we really have been ambitious about what is possible to make up for lost time. By my estimate, we're going to be, what's she saying here? We're going to be dropping over $1 trillion in the streets of America around adaptation and resilience and building a clean energy economy. Oh man, $1 trillion. And I can hear her cackle as I look at her picture. Isn't that something? I can hear it in my head. It's not going to be her. They're not going to replace Biden with her. Mark my words. I also see that the propaganda is ramping up from some other countries, and I'm seeing in relation to this, of course, it's not good for the United States. Biden stumbling and fumbling and bumbling his way through that debate, not good for the country, not good for the American image. That is certain. And then I saw Colonel McGregor calling for an early election, saying that Biden is unfit. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Yeah, because it doesn't need to. Even if he is bumbling and fumbling, they do have provisions where they can remove him from office if he's not fit. And you do have a vice president who can serve until the next election. So that would be a more likely scenario. If anything dramatic like that were to happen, if he's going to be removed from office, I don't think you should look to holding an early election. That destabilizes things even more. And the process is just not going to unfold that way. If they need to take him out because of incompetence, because he's senile, because of senility, Alzheimer's, whatever it is, they'll remove him and they'll put Kamala Harris in to fill the gap for 90 days, 60 days, however many days it takes to get to the next election. And while they do that, the Dems will pick somebody else to run in Biden's place. So, while I have great respect for Colonel McGregor, that's just not going to happen. Mark my words. What else do we have for you tonight? In Canada, WestJet canceling over 200 flights, over 230 flights actually, canceled today as the airline waits to see what next steps there are going to be in its ongoing labor dispute with its mechanics. It's causing a lot of disruptions at airports, and this was all unexpected because on Thursday, Federal Labor Minister Seamus O'Regan in Canada announced that he was ordering both parties to submit to binding arbitration. He was hoping that that would lead to a settlement in this labor dispute before there was chaos at the airports this Canada Day weekend for travelers, but instead we have chaos at the airports because of 235 canceled flights. Let's go to Twitter and O'Regan's statement. Hang on a second here. Where'd you go, Seamus? I lost him. There we are, right there. Okay. Seamus O'Regan. Here's his statement. Statement from Minister O'Regan on collective bargaining negotiations between WestJet and AMFA. The Canada Industrial Relations Board has issued an order referring the WestJet-AMFA dispute to binding arbitration for a first collective agreement under Section 80 of the Labour Code. I am reviewing the board's decision, which is clearly inconsistent with my direction to the board. I will be looking at additional steps to protect the interests of the employer, the union, and all Canadians traveling over this national holiday weekend. But we have disruption. And so Pierre Poilievre on this holiday weekend is the only federal leader whose staff is not answering questions about where he is going to be during Pride events this summer. Now, the Prime Minister, NDP leader Justin Trudeau, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet, and Green Party leader Elizabeth May, have responded to inquiries about where they're going to be. But Poilievre kind of silent on this one. So there will be Pride events all weekend. I think there's some big stuff planned on June 3rd. Or sorry, on Monday too. June is Pride Month, right? So they're capping things off. And then you've got Canada Day on Monday. So Singh did confirm he's going to be at the Pride Parade this weekend in Toronto. He's also expected to march in Montreal's Pride Parade in August. Trudeau confirmed he will be attending summer Pride events across the country, but as I said, I don't really know where he's going to be because he didn't provide specific details. Blanchet confirmed that he will be participating in Pride events without specific details. And May also says that she will be attending Pride events in Victoria, Vancouver, Salt Spring Island, BC, and Halifax. pretty interesting. I don't know. I received some information from Johnny about Pierre Polyev, and I'm going to talk about that more probably tomorrow, because he made reference to another program where Polyev's parents called into question, and so I'm looking into that stuff. I want to talk to him a little bit more about it before I comment further, and it's kind of tied into all of that stuff and Pierre Polyev's decision, or I guess his lack of response. It ties into that, and these gay pride events. Steve Bannon. This is what I'm talking about, instability. Everything feels weird. Steve Bannon has to report to prison by Monday. Of course, the former Trump advisor has to do that after the Supreme Court rejected his last-minute bid to stave off his 4-month sentence for defying subpoenas from the House January 6th committee. Now, he was convicted in Washington on 2 counts of contempt of Congress nearly 2 full years ago, in July 2022, and sentenced to 4 months in prison in October of 2022. U.S. District Court Judge Carl Nichols did put his sentence on hold as he pursued the appeal of his conviction. It was rejected back in May. Nichols then told Bannon, ordered him to report to prison by July 1st, saying there was no basis to continue to delay the sentence. An appeals court rejected Bannon's appeal of that decision, leaving only the Supreme Court to help him. He was held in contempt of Congress after he blew off the January 6th committee's request for documents and testimony as part of its investigation into Donald Trump's attempts to overturn the results, or so, of the 2020 election, or so it's characterized or worded by most mainstream media outlets. So Bannon has been fighting and fighting to stay out of jail. He's been delaying it. But Monday, he faces the whole cold, harsh reality of spending some time in a jail cell. All this as everything ramps up in the presidential election. And this was Bannon speaking about exactly this in his last War Room broadcast, telling people, don't even bother to write me any letters as I prepare to go to jail, because he wants everybody focused not on him, but on the election.
People are asking, what can we do? Listen, pray for our enemies. I don't have time. Do not write a letter to me at all. It will not be read. I am not going to take a second to read your letters. I'm not. Because you know why? I don't want you taking time to write a letter. I want you to get to work. This is all about victory. This is victory or nothing. There's no substitute for victory here. There is no substitute for victory. You know that. I know that. Use your time, husband your resources, and use your time. And your time is not sending me some missive in prison that I'm not going to read. You know why I'm not going to read? Because I'm going to be working outside of my job in prison. I will be working the rest of the hours on what? Total and complete victory. People ask me, what can we do?
Steve Bannon. Politics, man, it is a blood sport. It has never been nastier than it is right now. Like, there's no safe place if you're a politician right now, I don't think, because even if you're, if you're Biden, your party, you're not safe within your own party. They've turned on him. Trump, it's never been safe to be Trump. If you're RFK Jr., not safe to be him. Some people want to take him out. If you're Trudeau, that guy, talk about life in a fishbowl. He can't walk outside without being heckled and harassed. 200 police officers to protect him because he's so unpopular, sinking in the polls. Right now, Polyev seems to have no trouble in Canada, the leader of the Conservative Party, walking around in public. He doesn't seem to be, at too much risk. He doesn't get heckled too much, but I have seen some. But even there, it's not safe. When I say not safe, I mean there's always somebody with a knife out ready to just stick it in your back politically because they want your job, they want you taken out, they want the power. It is nasty. It always is, but it's at a fever pitch right now, not just in Canada, not just in the United States, but all across the Western world. There's change. The winds of change are blowing and you're seeing conservative parties, some would say far-right parties and politicians on the rise in the West. You're seeing not the rise of globalism, you're seeing right now the rise of nationalism. France is on the cusp of voting in a right-wing government for the first time since World War II. Over there in France, the mood appears to be souring on President Emmanuel Macron's brand of mainstream. Well, the mainstream media would call it centrism, but I would say it's progressivism. And they're moving toward populism, nationalism, a socialistic kind of nationalism. And we're seeing the exact same political winds blowing in North America. The anti-immigrant National Party in France is edging out the competition in opinion polls in the run-up to a 2-round snap legislative vote on July 7th. It's coming up, and Macron dissolved the French parliament and called the snap election after his liberal Renaissance coalition was routed by the National Rally in European Parliament elections earlier this month. He's worried not just about his political fortunes, but about the state of the country. In fact, here I'll show you a mainstream media headline from NBC. He's worried about a civil war. He's warning of a civil war if far right or far left wins French elections. It says here, French President Emmanuel Macron told a podcast episode shown Monday, so this is last week, that both the far-right National Rally, RN Party, and the left-wing New Popular Front coalition, frontrunners in the parliamentary election, risked bringing, his words, civil war to France. Macron told the podcast, Generation Do-It-Yourself, that the manifesto of the RN Party, which election pollsters put in first place, and their solutions to deal with fears of a crime and immigration were based upon stigmatization or division. He said, I think the solutions given by the far right are out of the question because it is categorizing people in terms of their religion or origins, and that is why it leads to division and to civil war, he told the podcast. In fact, I would say it's kind of the opposite in a way, because if you look at progressivism, it's all about identity politics. It's about dividing people into little groups and pitting one group against the other. It creates a hierarchy of victimhood. It's quite the opposite. Macron made the same criticism of the France unbowed LFI extreme, according to this article, left-wing party, which forms part of the New Popular Front coalition. He went on and said, but that one as well. There is a civil war behind that because you are solely categorizing people in terms of their religious outlook or the community they belong to, which in a way is a means of justifying isolating them from the broader national community. And in this case, you would have a civil war and those who do not share those same values. Where else are we hearing talk about a possible civil war? Right here at home. I hear people talking about it all the time. I don't know how serious the situation is or how close we might be to that. I think in the United States, well, maybe here in Canada too. I don't know. It just feels very unstable. Well, you saw everything that happened after January 6th, all the J6ers that have been in jail and prison ever since then. Still, a lot of them still there, a lot. I think a lot of people forget that they're there. The lawfare being used, Trump in court, Bannon going to jail on Monday. It's nasty. It is nasty. It asked during the debate if he would abide by, the results of the election, and Trump qualified what he said again, saying if it's a fair election, properly conducted, then yes, he would honor the results of the election. But he's qualifying it, you see. So I'll tell you, it's not going to matter what the outcome is. One side or the other is not going to be happy. And it's like a powder keg, isn't it? It really, truly is. And then we've seen just this past week the arrest of international right wing, if you will, political figure Tommy Robinson, the arrest of him in Canada, coming over from the UK for speaking engagements with Rebel News, then arrested out west. Told at the time when they took him into custody, took away his passport, said you can't travel outside Alberta. Now that's changed, and he made his way to Toronto, speaking engagements. And a lot of people, knives out for him too. Not safe to be Tommy Robinson. Here's a post about him on X. Somehow they got a hold of this document. Says, well, Tommy Robinson has only gone and posted his immigration arrest documents from Canada, which show he is, in fact, an Irish citizen. So he's an immigrant who identifies as English? There it is, apparently. Tommy Robinson, not his real name. Surname, Lennon. Given name, Stephen. Or Stefan. And it was an immigration charge that they took him into custody on. And now he's got a legal battle on his hands right here in Canada, and he's not going to be leaving anytime soon. He's going to have to deal with it. Yeah, so there's all that. What else do we have for you? Just before the presidential debate, I guess Donald Trump. This is, I have to tell you, I have to say, I'm again touched by this. Makes a positive impression on me when I see this kind of thing. Here, I'll bring up the New York Post article on this. It's getting some attention through media and online, but he phoned the mother of Jocelyn Nungari, just before he went on stage, just minutes before he went into that debate. Murder victim, the mother of Jocelyn Nungari, the 12-year-old girl who was allegedly brutalized and murdered by two illegal immigrants, was, quote, shocked when former President Donald Trump spoke to her 10 minutes before he took the debate stage Thursday. So this is a story. It was broken by the Post, this story. And Alexis Nungari's best friend, Victoria Galvin, it says, who was with the grieving mother when the two spoke, told the Post that Trump conveyed that there was no one he would have preferred to talk to before the debate than her. And he did talk about it in the debate. He was like, I'm actually about to come on for a debate. He gave his condolences, and he said that he would be reaching back out to her. He wanted to say he was praying for Alexis and that he's been thinking about her, and he wanted to reach out. He said that he was going to reach out in a couple of days to her. I mean, we were all shocked. And after the call, Galvin said she and Alexis, who had been staying with her, were talking about how little Jocelyn would have been in disbelief of the former president's attention to her story. Here's the exchange on that between Trump and Biden. You know, you would think when you're going into a debate, something as important as a presidential debate, you'd be very laser focused on the debate and what you were about to say, what you're about to deal with on the stage, where literally the entire world is watching. But he makes that phone call. I think that's something. I think that is really something, honestly. It says a lot about a person's character. Let's listen to the exchange
One
again.
of them, I just spoke to the mother, and they just had the funeral for this girl, 12 years old. This is horrible what's taken place. What's taken place in our country, we're literally an uncivilized country now. One of them,
Immigration, front and center, one of the main issues in this election. It's one of the main issues in the Western world, certainly in Canada as well. Politics. Talking about instability over in Iran, they're still counting the ballots in Iran's presidential election. So what they're going to do over there, though, is they're apparently going to have a runoff election in their presidential election because of low voter turnout. So this is a contest that is really between a reformist and a hardliner. Reformist Pezeshkian. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name correctly. I'm terrible with the pronunciations on these names. My Canadian accent. Pezeshkian and Jalili. So they're going to go into a runoff presidential election Friday to replace hardline President Ebrahim Raisi. Of course, he died in that helicopter crash back in May. That set the world into a, it sent shockwaves around the world, didn't it? Iran is absolutely an emerging power. And we saw that the death of the president in that helicopter crash has sent reverberations everywhere, worldwide. So apparently 24.5 million votes were cast, with Pezeshkian and in total, and then Pezeshkian got 10.4 million. Jalili received 9.4 million. But the law in Iran requires that the winner receive more than 50% of all votes cast. If not, the two candidates advance to a runoff a week later. So there is some sort of democracy going on over there in Iran, such as it is, and I don't live there. So I can't speak with a lot of authority on the subject because I just don't know what it's like to live in Iran or how democratized the country is. I will be researching that more in the days ahead, though. Here's Trump out golfing today. Talk about democracy. This is part of the democratic process, I guess. Who has the best golf swing? That's how you determine who the next president of the United States should be. That was one of the highlights of the whole debate. The two of them arguing over who the better golfer was and what Joe Biden's handicap was. Well, here's Trump out golfing today, and he just can't let it go. He comments after he hits the ball. It's just that whole thing over the golf. in the debate, that was like two 6-year-olds just arguing. It was, honestly, it was pretty pathetic. It was pathetic, in my opinion. Oh, man. Well, you can't hit the ball. Just like I'm a better golfer than you are. I'd do your golf challenge, but you have to carry your own bag. Unbelievable. Meanwhile, Dr. Phil. How did Dr. Phil become this? How did the Dr. Phil show become a political show? When did that happen? First, I saw him sort of venturing into the world of politics was during his trip to the border about, what was that, 4 months ago? And he had the big convoy going down there to support Texas Governor Abbott, and and everybody was afraid at the time that it was going to erupt into a civil war because of the use of the National Guard, blah, 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 blah. And then Dr. Phil flew down there, and he visited the border. Do you remember all that? And now his show is like one of the top political commentary shows, top political talk shows out there. He's getting all the top politicians on his show, the Dr. Phil Show. Well, the country certainly needs therapy, doesn't it? I think we all need a little therapy because the politics has become so crazy. Talk about psychological damage. Oh my God. Well, here's Dr. Phil talking about RFK. And RFK Jr. is going to have an impact. I don't know if he really has a shot at the White House, but at this point, I guess anything is possible because everything seems so crazy. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this before. They're actually talking about replacing Biden at this late stage. And as we discussed on the program last night, you just don't know. With RFK, who's he going to hurt more? Will it be Trump or Biden? I said, and Joseph was quite right, actually. I have to give it to him because Joseph Leonard, he was on the program last night, and I said, I think RFK Jr. takes more votes away from Trump than Biden, but not now. He's quite right. Because Biden self-destructed in the debate last night, now you have a lot of Democrats jumping ship and migrating over to the RFK Jr. camp. And I think you'll see that reflected in the polls. So he's taken a big chunk of the Biden vote, I think, at this point. I think it's safe to say that that's the case. And so, yes, he's taking more from Biden right now than Trump. So what will that mean in the long run? I was looking at RFK Jr. as being the spoiler in this election. But if Biden stays as the candidate, it might be the other way around. It might be Biden who ends up being the spoiler and Trump winning, because RFK Jr. at this point, because Biden has basically committed debate suicide, so much of the support might shift over to him that it'll be a two-way race, and RFK Jr. might not be able to pull enough away from the Democrat side. And Trump might just end up emerging. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, now all the dynamics have changed. Everything has changed because of that debate. And it benefited, honestly, you know who the winner was in that debate? RFK Jr. for that very reason. He didn't have to do anything. He didn't even have to do the real debate, alternative debate. He was the winner of the debate because of exactly that. He is going to surge in the polls more than even Trump. Now, after the debate, you saw that Trump did gain a lot, but I think RFK Jr. overall, you'll see in the days ahead that he will emerge as the big winner out of this. If the polls are accurate, and they often cook those things so that they're not measuring public opinion, they're manipulating public opinion with those polls. So you have to be very careful how you analyze it, how you read that stuff. It's all crazy stuff, though, man, I'll tell you. Now, I've got Gail Robertson waiting here, so we're going to get into a conversation with her. Of course, a regular contributor here at Maverick News, host of the Gail Now podcast online, and always a breath of fresh air and brings always a fresh perspective on these things with her when she joins us. But before we get into that, I'll just comment again briefly on Canada's Defense Minister, Harjit Singh, saying that these allegations of him possibly being one of the unnamed traitors in the investigation into Canada's political situation here, I'm sorry, I'm just having another technical problem. Anyway, he rolled out this reference to racism, saying that the reason people are targeting him is because he's wearing a turban. Now, I'm not sure how you feel about that. I'm not even sure how true it is, if it's true at all. But here's what he had to say about that this week as he came under the scrutiny of the Canadian people, largely, because the people want to know who these members of Parliament are who, I guess, are named in this NSICOP report as being either witting or unwitting participants in foreign interference in the Canadian political process. National security on the line. And right now, there's nobody who seems willing to come forward to provide this information to the Canadian people ahead of the next election. Here's the Defense Minister responding this week.
I'll be honest with you, I didn't think I would be getting those questions if I wasn't wearing a turban. And those who actually know me quite well, that throughout my careers and my service, I've rarely ever even talked about racism.
And I should actually correct what I was saying, because this was actually a reference to a story that came out this past week, just so I'm more specific about it, involving the withdrawal from Afghanistan and Canadian forces. And the report that came out from this independent media outlet, independent journalist, indicated that the defense minister and Canada had ordered that non-Canadians, Afghans, be given preference and priority for withdrawal from Afghanistan ahead of Canadians. And the defense minister says that that is complete BS, that the story is not accurate. And then he also added this about being targeted because of his race.
I'll be honest with you, I didn't think I would be getting those questions if I wasn't wearing a turban. And those who actually know me quite well, that throughout my careers and my service, I've rarely ever even talked about racism and what it actually meant. But I'll be honest with you, it needs to be called out. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't think I would be getting those questions if I wasn't wearing a turban. And those who actually know me quite well, that
So I play that for you and share that with you because Gail is going to talk about that very subject with us tonight as well. So let me take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll have Gail join us to discuss this week's, the highlights of this week's political stories. But before I do that, I'm going to play this for you. I'm going to play, here it is. I know that you've been waiting. This is the, this is the Justin Trudeau Dance and Fool compilation video. Enjoy.
wrong with them. That's it. I may be totally wrong with them. That's it.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now, at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program. For your mind.
Okay, Gail, welcome back.
Hello.
So here we are. I'm calling this the aftermath of the debate disaster. What is your initial impression?
Well, I was at an event last night and they actually live streamed the big screen. So I watched it for a bit and my first gut instinct told me as I watched it, because I could hear a little bit, but it was mostly just body language. And I thought, when I heard Biden answer one of the questions, I said, he seems on the defensive right out of the gate. He was on his heels and Trump was kind of taking ownership of the debate. So I thought, oh, this will be interesting to see how this plays out. So this was before I heard anything else. What's interesting as I, started looking last night as well as this morning on coverage, what I started to see happening is, wow, now all of a sudden, all those Democrats that were saying, no, he's fully functional, there's no problem. They're coming out for blood, right? And they're saying he needs to be replaced. And so it's interesting how quickly that happened. And a couple of other things that I noticed, and I haven't seen the whole debate from start to finish, but I've seen clips and enough from different perspectives, because that's what I always look for. I don't like to get down that rabbit hole of only seeing one view. It seems that Trump apparently came across as fairly compassionate towards Biden, as opposed to going for the jugular. And Biden came across as like stumbling and, couldn't answer the questions. Now, as someone who works in public relations, I've been coached and I've also coached people about doing interviews. Here's what's also interesting. Trump seemed like he listened to his handlers and Biden probably had been told, but I think I don't think he's able to. And it kind of is sad to see this happen, and that whoever approved him going live like that, that he was allowed to just, not present in a very presidential way. I mean, they talked about Trump not being presidential, but I think, the US has always been seen as, strong leadership. The country, has always kind of been this world ruler. And I just, watching that last night was, and today the clips seemed to be very much out of touch.
It was painful.
It was painful. That's what most people have said. It was like, ooh, like it's, when you're watching that and it's that cringe factor when you go, oh, how did this happen? And the first thing I thought of is that, wait a minute, Biden's camp wanted this. They pushed for it. They set the rules. It was CNN. So they can't say, oh, this was, they removed anything that would probably hurt Biden. They said, they shut off microphones so Trump couldn't continue on talking. Like they had that set up. They had it in a studio. Now, here's what's also interesting. They had it so that during the breaks, they couldn't talk to their handlers in between. Once the debate started, they were kind of in lockdown. So that tells me that too, like they probably thought that was more necessarily for Trump, but in hindsight, probably Biden would have needed that support. And then today to see, his wife come out and defend it. It's everything.
Joe, I'm so proud of you. You answered all the questions. Good boy.
Yeah,
that didn't help.
No. And someone said, the debate is now like it's known for all the memes that will come out, right? Like you just know this is going to just explode with, a couple of his answers, he, just went off. And, who lied more? I don't know why all of a sudden everybody's shocked by politicians who don't necessarily who skate the truth. I mean, all of a sudden this is shocking, and I've yet to see. I mean, that's what happens. There's spin. We can call it lying and call it spin. And as someone who's really spent a lot of time trying to understand what's happening, and I talk a lot about curiosity. So whether you like Trump, don't like Trump, whatever, like, let's set that aside. Let's set aside Trump as a human being, set that aside. I have to ask, why is he increasing in popularity? Even with charges and all of these things coming up. So do we say the electorate is stupid? Okay, so the media comes out and says they're dumb. How do you think that's going to help? That's number one. Number two is no one, especially the media, and especially in Canada, I don't think anyone understands how US politics works, and that Democrats are Democrats, Republicans are Democrats. I said they would vote for Satan in each camp if they had to. They just, it's a whole different philosophy, mindset. And I know so many people that I know in the business world in the States that will vote Republican. They will hold their nose. They don't necessarily like Trump. They don't even like, but there's no way they're going to be supporting a Democrat. It's just not going to happen. So I don't know. No one seems to understand and ask these questions. To me, I think the story is, let's go talk to people and find out why they like Trump. What is it about him? Now, if I was looking to support a candidate in the Democrats, I'd say, let's go find out why all these people like Trump and try to bring that into our messaging. Like, wouldn't that be okay? What are people looking for? They're looking for someone who's going to defend working class. They're looking for someone who is going to speak up for people who don't have a voice. They're like, and I don't know. No one seems to be asking those questions or wanting to look into why he's popular. And as soon as you say these things, oh, you're a Trump supporter. Like, I've had that happen to me. I'm like, no, I'm a curious person who wants to know why this is happening.
Well,
and I just want to know why.
And right now it is a difficult thing to analyze because I think the political landscape has changed a lot, right? Would you agree with that? Do you think that it's because we're dealing with not so much a conservative versus a progressive agenda, but Trump is a populist, and that's a difficult thing to define because it attracts people from various political stripes.
Bingo. That's it. And you know what? It's about listening. I was at an event last night, and Chris Lewis, who is a conservative MP here locally, was speaking, and he said part of the mandate shouldn't use the term mandate, but part of the charge they were given as MPs to go out this summer and to go listen. Interesting, right? And that is an interest, not to go out and fan flames, not to go out and, stoke anything. It's go listen to what people are saying.
Well, it feels like the winds of change are blowing internationally as well as, nationally. Here in Canada, Trudeau being heckled everywhere he goes. They lost that by-election in Toronto, St. Paul. Huge loss for the Liberals after holding that riding for, 3 decades, and now it's flipped to the Conservatives in this by-election. Now the knives are out for him. It's not clear if he'll survive for the next election. So you've got Biden on the ropes, Trudeau on the ropes, a lot of changes even in other countries. In France, you're seeing it. You're seeing huge pressures in the UK, Western countries in general. There's a lot of change in the wind.
Yeah, and I think also people are feeling they aren't being heard. People are feeling that there's no room to have differences of opinion. And I can't tell you how many people I've had conversations with. And because I don't fall into one political category, I have a very varied background in terms of, there's people probably see me right now as very left, and some people see me as right. So people say, and as I said, I'm really more about trying to figure out what's the best road forward and who is the best to take us there, and as a country and as individuals. And there's topics that come up that are around one thing, there's a lot of parents, wherever people may fall on the political spectrum, when it comes to your kids and your kids in school, I tell you, people have very strong views. And you better not be telling parents that you're not going to bring them in on certain conversations. If you have a child in school and they're changing their pronouns and changing their name, and then you say, parents, you don't have to tell the parents that, oh, that's not going to sit well with parents. Because then they're saying, you can't keep me out of this. And again, here's the extremes that happen. People will then say, well, they may get beat by their parents. Why did we go there? Why did we go to that all parents are going to beat them? And conversely, we shouldn't go to that all teachers are groomers. Like neither one of those positions are correct, right? So we have to kind of go back to saying, listen, let's tone things down and let's let people have different views, but also make sure that, like in the school system, you can't keep parents out of their children's what's happening with them. And you can't assume all parents are bad, because that's just not true. It's not true. And if there is a parent that is going to do anything to their children over that, there is a process in place. You can call CAS. Like it's not like parents can do whatever they want to their kids. And people overlook that and they think it has to be all or nothing. And we're in an all or nothing world. You either agree 100% with me or you're completely wrong. And this is what puzzles me the most right now, is how often I kind of hearing those extremes. But when you listen to regular people, and I talk to a lot of different people that are quieter, they're not as involved politically. I was talking to someone, this person didn't even know about the by-election in Toronto, right? But when I was talking to her about certain things regarding parental rights, regarding what's happening with the protests in the streets, I'll tell you, people are not happy. They're not happy with what's happening. They're not happy with what's being allowed to happen. I had a conversation with someone who said, have you been involved with the protests? I said, well, probably not a discussion we may want to have. They said, oh, why is that? It's not political. And I go, well, I said, I do have some concern for my Jewish friends. Now I have Muslim friends as well. So it's not like I all in one camp. And this person said, okay, yeah, we won't talk about it. Wow. We have to allow for being able to say things like, we can be concerned about people in the Jewish community. We can also be concerned about people in the Muslim community as well. But when we have protests in the street and they're being allowed to say things that are kill Jews, river to the sea, like that's, and as you know, I'm a free speech person. So I tend to say, leave the boundaries pretty open when it comes to free speech, when it comes to lack of censorship. But I draw the line when you are inciting hatred or killing of any person group. That's where the line gets drawn. Now you're allowed to say, I don't agree with Islam. I don't agree with Judaism. I don't agree with whatever. I don't agree with being trans. You can say all those things. You just can't incite,
And you talk,
we're allowing some of that incitement and not challenging it. But I also understand what the police are up against, because I think they've let this now go on way too long, and it's now getting out of control.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with what we just said. And we are getting this extremism, and it's manifesting itself in various ways. You're getting extreme views, more polarization, I guess, in views, and then you're getting more extreme reactions. And we saw that today in Ontario with the premier and his reaction to the removal of someone from his cabinet. Do you want to tell people what happened there?
Yeah, so this is Goldie Gamars, I think. I'm not sure of her last name, but she's been removed because she had apparently a telephone conversation with someone by name Tommy Robinson. That's a whole story. If anybody's been following that, if they're not, I encourage them to go look up. Tommy Robinson was giving a talk out in Alberta, connected with Ezra Levant from Rebel
Yeah,
News.
she actually posted an image of a meeting with Tommy Robinson on social media on
I think it was a phone call, wasn't it? A phone call?
No, I have it here in front of me.
Okay.
I guess she did post something on X.
So, and so then what happened because of all this happened, and then Tommy Robinson, there was 8 police officers showed up after his event in Toronto after he was giving a talk, ironically, about free speech. And it took 8 officers to arrest him. He was never charged with anything. Anyways, had to get a lawyer and go through this. Like I am shocked as a Canadian that this has happened to someone that came to our country, whether you agree or disagree with anything he's saying, whatever, like, we have so many people in this country right now that are coming in and doing horrific, some of them are doing horrific things, but why was this person and he had offered to say, listen, just let me finish my talks and I'll fly home. And, and Ezra was going to put up some money, like to make sure, say, listen, I'll make sure he shows up where he needs to show. I'll take the hit. If he does anything, I will be personally responsible. Yep. And they said no. And there was all sorts of funny things happening around, like the frontline officers and the immigration or whatever board. I'm not sure how, there was all different like groups involved.
Yeah, it was something to do with his
that he hadn't declared everything, whether he'd been arrested.
It was an immigration offense or something,
right?
Yeah.
Now, but 8 police officers, and then held him, arrested him, and then let him go. But then he couldn't leave out of Calgary. Like it was just. So I've been trying to, and then what happens? Like, I'm going to look into this. As my journalistic brain went, I want to find, who is this guy? How did 8 cops come and arrest him? So I've been doing some research and trying to understand who he is. Now he's a working class guy from the UK, right? So he doesn't talk in the way that, if you compared him to, like, say, a Douglas Murray, anybody that follows Douglas Murray, it's more polished and probably says some similar things, but says it in a very more professional
I don't
way.
know that they would say the similar things. No.
No?
I wouldn't put them in quite the same camp. Not really. But anyway.
Okay.
I digress.
I am still digging into this, so I'll get back to that. Because I don't know, I've heard Douglas Murray say some things about immigration issues but he just says it in a very polished way, he's such a great speaker, right?
Yeah.
So we'll circle back on that after I do a little more research and do a comparison chart of the two. But Tommy Robinson speaks probably a little more rougher, says terms that, maybe. And I also think what he may have said in the past, has he evolved and learned anything? But regardless, it was a great overreach of how they came and did the arrests and everything that's come, because now he's been let go and there's no charges. And after all this, like, days of, and all these lawyers. So what if he couldn't afford a lawyer? I don't know. Like, so there was a lot of, now it was fundraising for Rebel News too. So they're, I'm sure, getting money into this. But on this case, this was one of those, something doesn't smell right. If I was a journalist, I'd be wanting to know, oh, this is a great story here. Like, this should be, and that's kind of what I'm doing, not for pay. I'm just curious and I want to know more about this. So, someone like Goldie has a conversation, a meeting with him. I could see myself doing that. That's probably why I would get in trouble as a politician, because I'd be like, okay, I'll talk to this person, because I don't know everything about everybody I speak with. I spoke to people that I'm sure could even be
speaking to me right now.
And, because the work I do now, I'm pretty much, I can do what I want for the most part, right? But I tell you, there's a little bit of fear sometimes that I've never thought of as a Canadian. And it's only been since the whole COVID thing that I've ever thought, would I be targeted? Possibly. I've interviewed, but how I get away with it a little bit is I'm just interviewing people. So I'm asking the questions. I'm not saying, hey, Tommy Robinson's a great guy. Like, I'm saying, hey, I want to know more about him. From the preliminary research I've done on him, I haven't really seen anything that he said really horribly, except in the cherry picked stuff. And then when you go back and look at the context of what he said, this reminds me of my early days with Joe Rogan, because I would hear something that Joe Rogan was a loose cannon and a knuckle dragger and horrible person, right?
So are you just cluing into this now? Like, you haven't been following him? You weren't even aware of him until now?
No.
Really?
No, I had seen a snippet of him only since this is what's interesting when they do things like this, because it gets
he's been around for a long time.
No.
He did jail time.
No.
Back home.
I'm new to this, right?
Oh, okay.
But since this whole arrest, apparently 30 million views. So this is when they do these things. They are actually, and that's what happened with Joe Rogan. I think why Joe Rogan did was the more they attack people like this, the more support they generate. Because there's a lot of people like me. I never heard of him. Now all of a sudden I'm like, hey, I'm gonna
He's
go.
like one of the biggest international anti-immigration figures out there. He is viewed as, far right in Europe. He's been arrested back in his home. He's done jail time. He Ezra Levant for a time. He worked for Rebel News in the UK. Was arrested, did jail time. Ezra was flying over there for a while, as I recall. He was going to visit him in prison. They were helping to fund his legal battles over there. Now, they kind of had a sort of. Tommy Robinson went his own way. He ran for office over there. He lost. He wasn't elected. He ran on an anti-immigration platform. He's very anti-Muslim immigration. So now he flies over here, and of course, he's targeted by the Canadian government because of his political views, in much the same way as Christine Anderson, who is also viewed as far right. And if you look at the political parties they represent, their policies, their views, it's anti. So he's Islamophobic. Those are the allegations that they always throw around, right?
You know what? That's why I said I want to better. No, I have not. I mean, I've heard of him, but not like now, because I tell you, when 8 cops come in, descend on him after giving a talk, I'm like, what the hell's going on in Canada? So even if he is now, he could speak against immigration. And there's a lot more people, including immigrants living here, that are against immigration, especially from certain groups. That's now starting to change. Because I've talked to people, even people who are Muslim, are very concerned about what's happening, because it's the same thing like the gay community. In the gay community, I've talked to people in the gay community that are very concerned because of what's happening with the trans issues and the drag queens in schools. And I'm the biggest drag queen fan. You're like, I've been to drag shows. I love drag, right? But a time and a place. And so context matters. And the same thing when I went and listened. So let's go back. I listened to Joe Rogan. And when I went and listened to his 3-hour podcast and a variety of podcasts, I'm like, okay, this actually, he has really good interviews. So I'm doing the same thing now with Tommy Robinson. I'm trying to give context, because this label flies about often from media, and they say far right, far right. And I just saw some research done on this, on how often far right is mentioned versus how often far left. And of course, the numbers show that far right is targeted much more. So there's not that balance. So what happens is people get labeled, and then they live with that label. And I don't know, maybe Tommy Robinson deserves that label. Maybe he is a horrible person. But I want to be able to better understand that. And certainly coming to Canada, he should still be able to come and speak. If he has a view about immigration, I can not agree with it, but the tables get turned. And if this happened to someone else that was coming to speak on something else that was seen more of a left cause, and this happened, like, how would that be seen? There would be like, oh my God, that can't happen. And that's what I'm seeing, is that there's no allowance for having different views. We need to allow different views, because as soon as you try to stop that, number one is it actually helps fan the flames and give them more support. That's what's happening with him right now. He's probably going to have a show in Toronto will probably do phenomenally well.
Yeah, and his arrest will generate tons of donations for Rebel News again. Right?
Well, they got this, apparently this top-notch lawyer out west that came in, they got him, and it was interesting, because I've been following this since this happened, and it's interesting what they tried to pin on it, and this lawyer said, no, that's not it. No, so all these things they said were proven to be wrong. And from what he said, the police, a lot of the frontline people were really uncomfortable. There was clearly direction being given beyond the frontline workers. Something's weird, Rick. Something's very weird.
Well, it's politics, and so much that we see play out on social media or on video screens, it's really only surface level. There's always a lot more going on behind the scenes. Strategy, I think sometimes these things are even choreographed, right? Uh, Things are made to happen, or they let things happen because they want a particular reaction. Sometimes you martyr somebody. So it's hard to say what's really going on. I've seen over the past couple of days even reaction from Tommy Robinson opponents, people on the progressive left attacking him and making these kinds of allegations. Like, I don't know. So who knows what's really going on?
Well, and for anyone listening, I would say this, please get curious. And also, the other thing that happens sometimes is people do stray and say things inappropriately. And I've seen this happen on Twitter. There's a few people I follow. They're really good. They have great content. And then they go and just drop some comments that are not nice. I guess that's the best way to say it. There's one guy out in Alberta. He's written some stuff really good, and then he goes and writes something that's pretty nasty, right? And it's as much, as some people say, it's uncouth. But see, I've worked in manufacturing, I work with a lot of I allow for people to say things that are a little rough around the edges, because not everybody has been schooled in proper public relations and proper ways to say things, and don't have that same level of polish. But they still should be able to give them some leeway. And for anybody that hasn't been exposed to the more working class language, I'm not saying all working class people don't know how to speak. I want to be clear on that. But there are people that speak a little more roughly, but they have good ideas. They just may not say them in the most couth way, shall we say.
Have you followed this story about the defense minister, Harjit Singh?
Yes. Well, I've been following it. That's another one that's
yes.
There's so many messes right now, though, in this country that every day.
So just to explain to people, so he was accused in a media report, I think an independent media report by Mocha Berzragan, saying that during the Afghanistan withdrawal, the defense minister prioritized the assistance and withdrawal of non-Canadian Afghans from Afghanistan instead of saying Canadians first on the plane and we'll help you. They made the Canadians wait. Now, he held a news conference today saying just the opposite, he says it's BS. That's not true. What do you make of all of this? He's saying that he's claiming this is a clear-cut case of racism against him.
This is what happens. Okay. This is what's problem. It's like saying it's racist, misogynist, that it gets thrown around. It's like bullying. All these terms get thrown around too much. And I think, let's show the receipts, right? There's a receipt. And he just the other day said, oh, well, I wasn't checking the emails. What? How can you be in a leadership? I check my emails. There's certain roles you have. I'm sorry. You don't not check your emails and your texts when you're in a certain leadership position.
Well, when you're the defense minister, I'm sorry, I didn't quite get that memo that World War III had started. Sorry, that was last Tuesday.
There's a war going on, but I'm just going to not check it. So no, there's too much. I think though, what this government has been doing is they just say, no, it's not true. And they hope it'll go away. And the media sometimes doesn't challenge these things. They just let it drift away. Look at all the scandals that have happened that have just drifted away. No one,
but see, this is blown up because I'm watching, Shadow Davis last night. He was on last night, and I don't normally watch, but someone said, you got to watch the Shadow Davis. So I went over there and I watched a couple of his episodes, speed watched them. And he mentioned this story about the defense minister and then went a step further to allege that Harjit Singh might be one of those traitors in Ottawa that has been unnamed so far. And I thought, wow, that might get you sued. Okay. Especially if it's not true.
Unless you know something is true.
Yeah, good luck with that one there, Shadow. You don't have, unless you've got receipts on that one, and I bet you he doesn't.
Yeah.
Better watch your mouth.
Yeah.
But
No, and
there
that's
it
the thing.
was.
You have to be, and that's why I always say, like, whatever I'm talking about is that we need to be curious and, don't repeat things unless you know for sure. And, but what I'm saying, like, back to whether it's, like the Tommy Robinson things, that I don't know enough, but I do know 8 cops showing up after his talk and arresting him. And then and now he's been let go with it. Like something that's just, when we have people here that are doing crimes and getting out on parole, on bail, and
well, it's purely political. It's purely political. That's what it is.
After watching the Tamara Litch and the Chris Barber, I'm like, there's things here that are, and it concerns me about our justice system that's happening. And I am going to have to head out shortly, but I just wanted to, I know we wanted to talk about these topics, and I want to do that. I'm going to do that comparison. I want to go look into what Douglas Murray has said versus.
Yeah, that would be an interesting.
I think there's more similarities there. I think they've said.
Well, I think they're both sort of on in the same stream, but
yeah,
I
think Tommy probably has gone a little more to it, but again, context. I want to know the context of when people are saying certain things, and because sometimes you can cherry pick a quote. I see this all the time, and I see it on all sides. It's not just on the right or the left. This is, a lot of people will take one thing out of context, and it's, you don't know the whole story. And this is the problem right now. People are running around with stuff without knowing the whole story. And
yeah. Well, and Douglas Murray and Tommy Robinson have different roles, because Murray is an academic, a philosopher, right? Tommy Robinson is an activist and at times a politician, also masquerading as a journalist. I would say, and there's a lot of that going on these days.
Well, but I've been listening to him talking out, and maybe you're right. Publicly, he's saying different things, and
I don't know. I'm just saying, with anybody like this, right? You said, well, he's maybe not as bad as they're making him out to be, but then I also know that on either end or anywhere on the political spectrum, it can be like someone might be choosing the words carefully, and they might be a whole lot worse than we're seeing. So you never know.
And that's why I want to just, like, I'm new to this, so I don't have any history. It's not like you have much more history of following than I do. But what's interesting, I didn't know about him until this 8 cops arrest thing, and now I'm like, I'm looking into it.
I am surprised that you hadn't heard of him before, because he's been around and pretty high profile.
Well,
so we're gonna have to. You're kind of just
curious, but I can only be curious about so many things and hear so many things, right?
Yeah, you're kind of getting you're reemerging. You're coming on. You're coming from the on ramp onto the superhighway, the political information superhighway. So welcome to the stream.
Well, I want to say hi to everybody, and we will
we'll reconvene
soon. Okay, lots more to talk about, I'm sure.
Okay, thanks, Gail.
Okay, ciao.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow, maybe too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So the Trudeau dancing video at the Asian Food Festival in Markham, it's getting more traction. I'm already seeing additional posts. There was another video posted from a slightly different angle, but with all that happening, what else can I do but to play this again?
Dancing fool. Dancing fool. Dancing fool. Dancing fool. The beat goes on and I'm so
That's our prime minister. This is Joe Biden, comparing the Biden of 2019 to the Biden of 2024. What a difference a few years makes. Can you imagine what it's going to be like if he gets reelected, and then 4 years after that, what his decline will be like? Here, check this out. Oh, hang on.
In civil rights, and those civil rights, I continue to think we have to make fundamental changes in civil rights, and those civil rights, by the way, include not just only African Americans, but the LGBT community.
He wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare
I did not oppose busing in America. What I opposed is busing ordered by the Department of Education. That's what I oppose.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if you will determine the outcome of this election, vote, vote, vote. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is the best way for you, because he cannot stop you. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump? I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look.
America, you have a problem.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching.
The world is watching. On TV, the entire world is watching. On social media,
but the entire world is watching. And yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching.
Okay, before we move on, and I've got two conspiracies coming up, but before we get into that, if you like what we do here on the Maverick News channel, you can support us, support this operation, support yourselves, because this is your platform as much as it's mine or anybody else's here. I mean, I have to take care of it. I'm the caretaker, but you guys have a stake in this as well, and you can support the quest for truth and support for free speech by donating at maverickdonations.com, or you can also donate at freedomreporters.com. And of course, again, if you donate $30 or more, I can send you a Maverick News t-shirt. I'd be happy to do that. Just provide your shipping information and what size you would like in the comment section when you fill out the donation online. And I will also send you, for $60 or more, a Maverick News embroidered shirt, like this one, only not an SST one, a Maverick News shirt. They are black and durable as a pig's nose. You'll have the thing for probably the next 100 years because they're really, very durable and comfortable too. So Maverick News shirts available if you want them with a donation online. But you can support us as well without even making a donation by just clicking the thumbs up button on the YouTube channels. Would really appreciate that. That pushes us up in the algorithm. It drives the people at YouTube and Google crazy, I think, because they're trying to suppress independent media outlets like ours. And that doesn't end run around that entire effort. So it forces us up in the search engine rankings. And if you do subscribe on YouTube, please make sure you hit the notification bell. Please consider subscribing over on Rumble. That's where we really need to continue to grow, because they're not going to ban us over there like we've been banned permanently on Facebook, which I wear as a badge of honor. And my dispute with Facebook continues as I try to get them to release our property, but that's a whole other story unto itself. So yeah, you can support us in those ways. And if you do donate $60 or more and you request one of those embroidered Maverick shirts, I will also send you, do I have one here? Yes, I do. Oh, I still have some of these. Send you a bonus Hot Wheels die-cast collectible Batmobile, 1/64th scale, complimentary as a bonus. Can't go wrong with that. I've got a bunch of those still, and happy to share those with people too. They're pretty cool, even for big kids, little kids, big kids, kids of all ages. Everybody needs a Batmobile. Now, I have some other stories that I want to share with you tonight, but they're in some of them are absolutely true. The big story is absolutely true. But it falls into the Truspiracies realm or sphere of reality. Some of it I'm not sure is entirely real, but let's shift gears and get into we're just going to shift into Truspiracies from Maverick News into Truspiracies, because it's a mix of stuff tonight, and we're going to get into the tabloid here a little bit too. So stay with me, It's we're going to get into this serial killer story, UFOs, and other stuff on the other side of this. All right, I'm back, and we're going to start with this. This is a story, and I'm putting it in the Truspiracies section, mainly because it is getting coverage in the tabloids. But this is absolutely true. This is a true crime story, international in scope, about a serial killer. But here's the headline in the Globe. Now, interestingly, it's getting more coverage in the tabloids, like the Globe, than it is through mainstream media. And yet, it is one of the biggest stories, maybe the most horrific murder story ever in the history of Indiana. And there's a Canadian connection to this. 30th anniversary. Let me find the, here it is here. Serial killer's boneyard found. Here it is. All right. Serial killer. Herb Baumeister. This goes back to the 1990s. This is a story that dates back 30-some years. Serial killer. And it led investigators to an Indiana farm. The Indiana farm of Herb Baumeister. Now, 30th anniversary, why is this significant? Because investigators have just this, within the last few weeks, uncovered even more remains of Baumeister's victims, described here in the Globe as a gay monster. Apparently, Baumeister, living in the closet for quite some time, says a peaceful Indiana farm has turned into a field of horrors, where authorities have uncovered 10,000 pieces of human remains and identified 3 victims of the late serial killer Herb Baumeister in just the last 3 months. So they've returned to the farm to exhume some of these remains. I'll tell you, it was years ago, though, that they actually first found human remains on the property. It says so far the remains of 12 young men and boys have been identified as victims of Baumeister, who was never caught and blew his brains out with a .357 Magnum on July 3rd, 1996, while on the lam. Now that's where the Canadian connection comes in. He committed suicide not far from where I sit this very evening, in a provincial park in Ontario, Canada, called the Pinery. Before he did that, he wrote a suicide note, apologizing for messing up the beautiful scenery there, the natural surroundings of the provincial park, and yet in his suicide note made no mention at the time of the killings that he was responsible for. Lawmen believe, it says here, the mild-looking and secretly gay businessman killed at least 25 boys and young men starting in 1980 as they sift through 10,000 crushed and burned skeletal pieces found on his 18-acre multi-million-dollar Fox Hollow farm north of Indianapolis. Baumeister, who grew up as a nerdy loner and had been diagnosed with schizophrenia early on, was a small-town businessman and family man. Well, he'd fathered 3 children. His wife, Julie, later claimed they'd only had, get this, and again, viewer discretion advised, full sex 6 times in their 25-year marriage, during which she'd never seen him totally naked. But lawmen said say that he had a secret double life as Brian Smart, who cruised gay bars hunting for young homosexual men. In 1988, he moved his family to the 18-acre farm where lawmen say he hid the burned and pulverized remains of his victims in the yard and among the wooded hills. So in this past month, police have returned to that farm. A task force there, led by Hamilton County Coroner Jeff Jellison, identified the remains of Jeffrey A. Jones, 31, who went missing in 1993. His remains were found first 3 years later. Victims also identified in the past 6 months are Alan Livingston, who vanished at age 27 in August 1993, and Manuel Resendez, 34, who also disappeared in 1993. That makes a total of 12 young men and youths identified as victims of Baumeister during a 16-year rampage of savage murder, usually by strangling. So Baumeister's killing spree finally began to unravel when his teenage son discovered a human skull and showed it to his mother. She at first refused to allow police, who were investigating the disappearances of young gay men, to search the farm, but later relented while Baumeister was away and the remains of 11 were discovered. Baumeister went on the run and in July 1996 ended up fatally shooting himself in the head after eating a peanut butter sandwich in Pinery Provincial Park on the Canadian side of Lake Huron. His suicide note referred to his failing business and broken marriage, but made no mention of the murders. Now, it's not getting attention just in the Globe or in the tabloids. It is getting some attention in especially media around Indianapolis and Indiana. Here, I'll show you. Excuse me. So here's some coverage online with area media, regional media. Pictures of the farm here, where the remains have been found. There's a picture of the farmhouse. That was taken back in 2012 in October. Midnight view of the Fox Hollow Farm main house. Inside the dwelling out in the wooded area. And police getting some assistance in their investigation as they try to, I guess, how can I put this? Well, they've gone to the area university seeking assistance with their investigation, and they've received that assistance, and it has proven to be invaluable because the remains, of course, at this stage in the game, 15 years later, you're searching for DNA evidence. Here's a local media report that we have from WTHR, Channel 13. Getting into this investigation further, and this will help you, I think, get a proper perspective on where the investigation is at.
Remains of a man identified as a victim of suspected serial killer Herb Baumeister.
Our Emily Longnecker has been following these developments closely.
And she now reports from the University of Indianapolis tonight, where they've helped police identify the remains that they found at that farm so far.
Yeah, you know, this is a case with a lot of history. We know that in the mid-90s, investigators identified 8 people from the thousands of bones and bone fragments found on Herb Baumeister's Westfield property, but many of those remains were unidentified for the past almost 3 decades, and they've sat here on a shelf at the University of Indianapolis. And today, the Hamilton County coroner announced that they've matched another remain to one of those 8 original people.
The process hasn't been an easy one.
These remains are 30 years old. They've been burnt. They've been crushed.
So that makes our DNA efforts difficult.
Still, the Hamilton County coroner says they were able to recently identify another remain belonging to Jeffrey A. Jones, one of more than likely 24 men who were alleged victims of suspected serial killer Herb Baumeister. Investigators already identified some of Jones' remains almost 30 years ago. Now, there are more.
I think it's important that we give the opportunity to these families to bring as much of their loved one home.
That's why just over a year ago, Hamilton County Coroner Jeff Jellison reopened the case to try and identify thousands of unidentified remains recovered from Baumeister's property. It started with a call for people with male family members missing from the mid-'80s to mid-'90s to submit DNA samples. Investigators hope to match those samples to DNA profiles from remains tested by the Indiana State Police. Early on, investigators ID'd more remains from Manuel Resendez, who, like Jones, was already positively identified in the mid-'90s. Then last year, a brand new identification of Alan Livingston after his family provided a DNA sample. According to the coroner, this latest match to a remain belonging to Jones didn't come from a family DNA sample. Instead, the FBI discovered it after taking the DNA profile from the remain and putting it into a database, tracking DNA profiles from genealogy websites. Right now, investigators still have 4 DNA profiles with no matches to any DNA samples from family members of suspected victims. They're hoping the FBI will find a match the way they did with this latest remain.
The power of genetic genealogy in this type of investigation just really just adds to our ability to identify unidentified people.
And coming up tonight at 6, we'll tell you the Hamilton County coroner's plans for the remains that go unidentified or that no one ever claims. He says it will be a way to honor these alleged victims. At the University of Indianapolis, Emily Longnecker, 13.
Okay, and I need to self-correct because I said, I think 15 years. That's because I was still had the information from the previous murder story that we began the broadcast with in my mind, which was a 15-year anniversary. But this, 3 decades later, and they're still finding remains on the farm of Baumeister, the former property, and identifying those remains using DNA evidence. Now, now, truly in the Truspiracies realm, we have a UFO sighting, and this time in Manitoba, Canada. Boy, a lot of Canadian stuff tonight. Now, I'm not buying that this is, it's certainly unidentified. Is it a flying object? I don't know if it's actually flying. I'm not sure what this is. Is this special effects? Is it a lens flare? Is it something else? Is it the sun duplicating itself in the sky? Or is it UFOs? I'll let you decide. But this has been going semi-viral online. I noticed it a couple of days ago, and I share it with you now because it is getting some play on Twitter, X.
I guess that was, is that Taurus B? Look, there's another one there. Look at, what the fuck is that? Yo, I think we're seeing some aliens. We're looking at something here. I don't know what that is. Is that a plane or what is that? We're on the North Shore. We're trying to figure out what that is.
I can tell you exactly what it
Try to
is.
record it here.
Has anyone figured it out? I know exactly what that is. I'm going to stop it there. I'm going to check the comments. Do you know what that is? Sandy says sunbeam. Nope. Nope, it's not a sunbeam. Magic Moon says training with helicopters. Nope. Military Sky Party. Nope. Gonna go to Rumble and check there. Check in the chat. Anybody know it? I know what it is. A drone? Nope. Nope. When I point out what this is, you're gonna agree with me, I think. It's not what it is. Car light, yes. That's what it is. Actually, I think it's a pickup truck. And my guess is that certainly those are the headlights through some fog, like some mist in the air. So it's diffusing the light as it's coming at the camera. And my guess is it's got fog lights mounted on a roll bar above the cab. In the pickup truck, when he turns those on, that's where you get the second set of lights, again, being diffused through the haze or the fog, the mist in the air, distorting the light. The lens also additionally distorting the light, flaring it out a little bit. But when they turn the top lights off, you only have the two at the bottom. How do I know it's a truck? Because listen very carefully. When that moves, you can hear the truck engine. Listen.
We're on the North Shore. We're trying to figure out what that is.
It's a truck.
I'm trying to record it here.
Did you hear it? I'll play it one more time.
We're trying to figure out what that is. I'm trying to record it here.
That's what it is. That is a pickup truck. And those are the headlights. And from the sound, know what I know about vehicles, I would say it's a Chevy 350 V8. Telling you, that's what it is. Now this, I don't know. I can't identify this. Maybe you can help me out with this. Is this Bigfoot? It's being, I'm told it might be a Bigfoot sighting. Looks familiar in a kind of a creepy way, but I can't quite place it. I don't know. This one's online. Anybody know what this is? Is it true? Is it a conspiracy? Is it a true spiracy? Anybody recognize that Bigfoot? Oh, that's Big Marge. That's Big Marge. That's who it is. That's Big Marge. That's hilarious. Okay. Back to something a little bit more serious to kind of wrap things up tonight. It's Canada Day weekend. Canada Day not until Monday. Okay. But I'll tell you, our country, folks, is under attack. It has been for quite a while. And when I say under attack, I mean in fifth generation warfare sense. One of the ways that they're attacking us is by taking away our culture and our pride, our national pride. In Canada, this weekend, some Canada Day celebrations, once again this year, canceled. Not because of the pandemic, not because of lockdowns. It's because the politicians, the bureaucrats, the system. Well, not the system, the people who control the system, control the purse strings, they're making it difficult for organizers of some Canada Day events to put them on. And government's not supporting Canada Day events the way they used to. Indeed, in Montreal, the Canada Day parade is canceled. The organizer, Nicholas Cohen, this week blaming red tape and funding issues. So a lot of people wondering, what the heck can you do this Canada Day weekend? Now, I know that where my parents are this weekend, for instance, they were going to have fireworks locally. And this is down on the shore of Lake Erie in a small community there. But not going to happen because it's going to rain. Nevertheless, might happen another night this weekend because the Canada Day weekend is not over yet. So a lot of people wondering, what can we do this weekend? A lot of people giving up, and I keep saying, you can't give up on the country. Don't give up. Celebrate anyway. Just because your municipality or your province or your federal government isn't supporting these fireworks displays or Canada Day celebrations, just say to heck with you and celebrate anyway. I think on our street this weekend, we'll be having some fireworks on Monday. Usually we do. The kids love it, and it's just something that we do in the neighborhood. A lot of people do that. And John Scotty Rimby out in Edmonton, feeling very patriotic. And he called me up today and he said, hey, I found finally a great display of Canadian flags. I'm going to send you some pictures to celebrate the Canada Day weekend. And we're going to kick things off right now. Our Canada Day weekend celebration right here on the Maverick News channel with this video that I produced using photos from John combined with some fireworks footage. And I hope you enjoy it. Happy Canada Day weekend, everyone. I'm going to roll out the show and with this, here we go. Thank you, John. Thank you guys for spending the night here with me and each other. See you tomorrow on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.